Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us, everyone, for this 14th SPAFA Sesh, which is CMEO SPAFA's online activity where we host different events on topics related to archaeology, fine arts. So during this SPAFA Sesh, CMEO SPAFA Center Director, Mrs. Somlek Charanput, will call upon the motivators in the Art Collections Matter project, spearheaded by the Rome-based International Center for the Study and Preservation and Restoration of Cultural Property. So joining us today will be Jose Luis, who is the unit manager of strategic planning at ICROM. He has a background in polymer chemistry and with a focus on paper-based heritage. He is a conservation scientist. He was a conservation scientist at the Cultural Heritage Agency of the Netherlands, and then he moved on to ICROM. Some of his international work includes the area of risk management for cultural heritage and new methodologies and tools, capacity building, research, and raising awareness. He returned to ICROM in 2018 and has been managing the strategic planning units, as well as a portfolio of projects on heritage collections, risk management, and sustainable development. He is also a member of the editorial board of the Restaurateurs International Journal for the Preservation of Library and Archival Material. Also joining us today is Henry, who has a background as an ecologist, museum curator, and senior manager. He founded Curating Tomorrow in 2019, so very recently, to support museums and their partners to enhance their contributions to sustainable development agendas, including the Sustainable Development Goals, climate action, biodiversity conservation, and human rights. He is a member of the ICOM Sustainability Working Group and author of Museums and the SDGs. He has also co-edited 2 books on climate change communication. So thank you for joining us. And here to moderate today's discussion is CMEO SPAFA Center Director, Mrs. Somlek Charanput, who joined SPAFA a couple years ago and has a lifelong career in museums, so comes with a lot of experience to share with us today. So thank you all for joining us.
Thank you, Lynn. Sawadee ka from Bangkok to both of you, Jose and Henry, and also to our audience from many parts of the world. I'm sure that all of you who are attending this session today most of you are collection-based organizations, since this is the topic that I'm sure that everyone is interested in. And I think this project on our collections matter is something that new, and it's also in trend because we take our collections to be related to sustainable development goals of United Nations. But I mean, many people are already aware of SDGs, but how can we involve our work with SDGs is something sometimes it's very not clear how we get involved to that to reach the sustainable development goal. So today you will find out from the project by our 2 speakers from ICROM. Both Henry and Jose is very keen because they set up this project and they have been working with this project all along. Before they approach to CMEO SPAFA to be a partner of this project with the intention that it could reach to our Southeast Asian collection-based organizations and how our colleagues in the region can use these tools and project to help with their work to reach to sustainable development at the end. Before I will give the floor to Jose and Henry, since Lynn has, I don't know whether she has mentioned that for those of you who are attending these SPAFA sessions and you are coming with some questions for our speakers to answer, you will get the prize winner from Simeo Spafa. This is the shopping bag that we designed for our 50th anniversary. It's very beautiful and very fashionable. So this is just to give you some interest before. All right. In order to begin our talk, I would like to invite Jose to give us the introduction, the background of the project on our collections matter. You can tell them the whole full name of the project and how it started and what does the intention of this project aim towards, and how can it help? I give you the whole through questions so you can answer all through your speech. How can it help the collection-based organization to develop their work towards SDG? Or if not SDG, how can it improve their work in the museum or National Library or National Archives or any other related organization? And what is your expected outcome of this project? So may I give the floor to you, Jose, please?
Thank you very much, Director Somlak. Good afternoon, good morning, good evening, wherever you are. It's a pleasure to be here. I would like to first thank SPAFA for the invitation to participate in this SESH webinar. Very glad to be here. Please allow me to share my screen. And as Director Somlak said, I will introduce the Our Collections Matter initiative and tell you a little bit why we started it and what are our visions and expected outcomes. But in a nutshell, as you can see here, we want to enable sustainable development through collections and their conservation. Before I start, I would like to say a few words about ICROM. For those of you who do not know ICROM yet, ICROM is an intergovernmental organization currently with 137 member states around the world. So all the countries that you see in blue color here in the map are member states of ICROM. And the mission of ICROM is to promote and conserve cultural heritage in all its forms for the benefit of all people. I would like to highlight some member states which are also member countries of SPAFA. So you can see here we share these member states and common interest to protect and promote cultural heritage for the benefit of societies also in the region. The dates you can see there is the year when each country became a member state of ICROM. There are still a few countries in Southeast Asia that are not yet member states, so we are waiting for everyone else to join the family. And ICROM and SPAFA collaborate for many years, so we have a long-standing partnership with SPAFA. As you can see here, this is a picture from a newsletter by 2011, so 10 years ago, which was reporting on this still ongoing program called Collasia for the conservation of collections in Southeast Asia, where ICROM and SPAFA have partnered successfully between 2002 until 2011. And now we are very glad to continue and expand this partnership through the Our Collections Matter initiative. So back to Our Collections Matter. So to contextualize it, today's world, we face several challenges from climate change to loss of biodiversity, inequalities, conflicts, intolerance. So we face many challenges on one side. On the other side, we have all these beautiful aspirations, to transform our world into a sustainably future. So through the Sustainable Development Goals, and then we talk about ways to improve the social aspects, environmental and economic aspects all together in a holistic way. And then the question here that led to the creation of our collections matter is how can collections-based organizations, and by that I mean museums, libraries, archives, galleries, cultural center, etc. How can they make concrete contributions towards sustainable development? So how to connect the work that we do with collections with the sustainable development goals so that we become stronger, we become more confident, we become more knowledgeable about these sustainable development goals and can really connect what we do with collections with the sustainable development. So that's where our collections matter was born from, not to help us make this connection between work with collections and sustainable development, and then become more knowledgeable and more comfortable about doing that and talking about that and communicating that within the heritage sector and beyond, and really as a sector, not to make concrete contributions to transform our world through our work with collections. So to start, that's our firm belief that heritage collections and their conservation, they have this critical or crucial role to play in sustainable development. So we firmly believe that that's a premise for this project. And then what we want to do is unlock the potential of collections. So how can collections be used in their maximum potential, to help enhance, for instance, social cohesion, to help society become more proactive in terms of climate action, to improve prosperity, engaging, for instance, with the creative industry. So looking at this big picture and ways forward to transform our world into a better place with a thriving future. So how can we unlock the potential of heritage collections through our work with them? And then, very importantly, how can we change mindsets in the communities that use our collections? And by communities, I mean the public in general, but also researchers and heritage professionals. So how can we use collections effectively to change mindsets in people, not in general, in these communities of users, in terms of raising awareness or helping with education towards these sustainable development goals. So collections can help mediate and drive change in mindsets and also change in behavior. So ultimately, what we want to achieve is that through our work with collections, we can change mindsets and behaviors in all communities that our institutions serve. And with that, we can transform the world into a more sustainable place, going greener, more prosperous with social cohesion, and then with thriving society. So we believe that through our work, we can help advance that concretely. And now the question is, you might be asking, how are we going to do that? And the answer is here. So we have adopted a strategy that's called the triple T, as you can see here. So we're going to work and provide tools and then training. And with that, we aim to achieve this big transformation. So tools are practical means to connect work with collections and concrete advance in sustainable development. I'll show you a couple of tools in a while. So that's one thing we want to provide this practical means, not to enable the organizations to make concrete contributions towards sustainability. Then that will be complemented by training, and also because of in ICROM and also in SPAF, so capacity building is a strong component of our work. So we not only want to provide tools, but then training to build knowledge and skills together, and to empower the collections-based organization not to play their fullest part. As I said, to become more confident, more conversant, with the use and work towards the SDG, the use of tools to really empower the sector, not to become stronger and more conversant to work towards sustainable development. And then as an outcome, we want to see everybody, all collections-based organizations working together around the world to change their communities of users and then help transform the world. We also want to see them changing themselves in the way they operate. So it's the changes of the organizations themselves to go greener, more inclusive, etc. But also, and maybe more importantly, how can they change their communities of users? So going one by one, in terms of tools, so we have launched recently a toolkit, and I'll show you an example in a while, which contain tools that collections-based organization can use to make concrete actions towards the sustainable development goals. So these tools, as you will see in a while, they concretely address the sustainable development goals and their specific targets. As you know, for each one of the 17 SDGs, there are targets which are more concrete and actionable objectives that we can work towards. And as part of the toolkit, we are also providing a dedicated set of indicators by which collections-based organization working with the different tools, they can measure progress and report. As you know, it's very important to not only to work towards sustainable development, but to be able to measure our progress and to communicate it within the heritage sector and beyond, with our governments, for instance, with other sectors. It's very important that we become more well-equipped and more confident and comfortable in doing that. And here I'd like to show you briefly the toolkit that's available online. So if you go on the internet, if you type ocm.ecom.org, you'll see this. This is the landing page of the toolkit, and it has different entry points. So you can look for tools, for instance, by searching across the 5 Ps of sustainable development. So tools that are more related with people or with the planet or with prosperity, peace, and partnership. So you can choose from here. If you're not so familiar with the SDGs, you can see here on the left a set of actions that if you're interested in any of them, you can look for tools that will help you achieve this or work towards these actions. For instance, if you are interested in sustainable tourism or collections to support research or the reduction and management of waste through collections-based work. So you can search from here. And of course, you can also search for tools by the SDGs. So here are the 17. For those who are familiar with the SDGs, you can identify an SDG that matches the aspirations of your organization or the challenge that you are facing, and look for tools by searching the SDGs. And last but not least, here at the bottom, as I said before, each SDG has a number of targets under it. So if you are familiar with those, or if you want to explore those, you'll find all the 169 targets pertaining to the 17 SDGs. So you can filter and look for tools that match or that address each individual target. So I invite you to explore the toolkit and then you'll find out more. So, but once you filter, you decide on what type of areas or of SDGs or targets you are interested to work on, you'll be taken to the next page where all the tools that relate to that particular aspect will be listed. And then you can go to the page that each individual tool has. So here, for instance, I'm showing you the page of one of the tools in the toolkit. This particular one works with the reorganization of museum storage. So you can read a summary of what the tool is about. And then here, under resources, you will be taken to the website, to the publications, to all the materials pertaining to the tool, so that you can really work with it in your collections. And then to connect that work with sustainable development, you will see which SDGs can be addressed by working with this tool. And then more importantly, here at the bottom of the page, where we say what are the SDGs linkages between working with collections in this tool and which of the SDG targets are addressed or can be addressed. You see the icon for each target here individually. So by working with the reorg tool in our museum storage, all these different SDG targets can be addressed. And then for each target, as I show in the next slide, not only you'll be able to connect the work with the target, but you'll also be able to measure your progress through a number of indicators that we are proposing in the project. Just to let you know, right now there are over 160 tools in the toolkit and counting. So the idea is that it will continue to grow as we identify new tools in the heritage sector and beyond, but we are also working to create new tools within the project partnership. And here, just to show one example, for one SDG target that has to do with the building knowledge and capacity to meet climate change. So for each one of the SDG target, we are proposing our collections meta indicators, so that if we work towards that target with a tool from the toolkit, you will be able to see here what we are proposing in terms of how to measure progress towards that target. So in terms, for instance, of the number of plans you have developed to enhance contributions to address climate change through the use of collections, the number of plans in place for effective education, awareness, etc. So for each target, as you can explore in the toolkit, we are proposing indicators for measuring and reporting. Again, that's very important to strengthen our sector in terms of becoming more literate in terms of sustainable development. And in order to test the toolkit, with our partners, and here I'm also inviting all of you who are interested to run. We are going to start to run a number of field tests, so that the collections-based organizations, given their sustainability or sustainable development aspirations or challenges, they can try the toolkit and then document it and then report it back to us, so that we can improve it. And also we can use that feedback to work towards the training and the capacity building. So here I'm inviting everyone who is interested to join us in this effort of field testing. And then besides the tools, as I said, so we will complement that with training to build knowledge and skills together by using the toolkit, but also very importantly, by everybody collaborating to create new tools where there are no existing tools to connect work with collections and sustainable development. We also aim to develop new tools. And again, as I said, the training will be a powerful way to connect collections-based work, conservation, and sustainable development, to strengthen our voice, our understanding, to strengthen our presence as collections-based organization as strong contributors to sustainable development, because we know our organizations, museums, libraries, and archives, they have an important place in society. So people look up to this kind of organization. So we can serve as a role model. And again, as I said, with this, we aim to empower the organizations to play their fullest part. Just to give an example, so things that are happening are just about to happen. Right now, starting in September, there will be an international course for the reorganization of museum storage in Southeast Asia. So using the reorg methodology that I showed before. And in this training, we will be connecting reorganization of storage with sustainable development. And then for next year, and please stay tuned, together with SPAFA, there will be a collegiate course on collections conservation and sustainable development to go deeper into what we are discussing here. So please stay tuned if you are interested. So the announcement for the course should be coming online towards the end of the year. And then altogether, once we are comfortable and conversant with the SDGs and the targets, so we are used to it, we are familiarized ourselves, we can talk SDGs, so we can go out there and influence our communities of users, no, in terms of changing mindsets and changing behaviors, and with that, creating a big wave to transform our world. So here's everything I said in one picture. So that's our vision for our collections matter. So we will recognize the potential of heritage collections for this transformation through sustainable development. We want to unlock this potential so that we tackle all spheres of importance, like the social aspects, environmental aspects, prosperity and economical aspects. We want to change mindsets by engaging our communities of users. And also, and more importantly, we want to change behaviors, not only how our organization behaves. So we want to go greener, we want to decarbonize our operation, but also, and perhaps more importantly, how can we, through collections-based work, change behaviors in the communities that we serve. At the center, you see the triple T strategy. That's how we're going to do that. And then very important for ICROM, and I believe for SPAF as well, is the role of conservation of collections or care of collections in the process. We can only do that if our collections are in good shape, accessible, and ready to be used. And conservation has a critical role to play that. So that's very important to underline. This is our partner so far. So we're working with an international coalition of partners. Very glad to have SPAF on board, representing the Southeast Asia region. And the idea is that we will continue to enhance and increase this partnership to work towards that big transformation that we mentioned. And with that, I'll conclude the introduction. So please, if you're interested to read more about our collections method, please go and check on the ICROM website. If you are interested in collaborating more directly with us, not through field testing or developing new tools or otherwise, please drop us a line at this email address here. It will be a pleasure. We'll be very glad to be collaborating with you. And with that, I will conclude my presentation. I believe there is a short video now about our collections matter. I think Lin Ann will be showing that. Thank you.
Professionals can also contribute by shifting to sustainable practices. Join us in maximizing the potential of our collections and inspiring communities to help make our world a better place.
Apologies for the audio problem, but if you want to rewatch the video with full sound, Jose has shared the link in the chat. So please feel free to have a look at the video there. Thank you. Sorry.
So, thank you very much, Jose. Even though the video doesn't have the sound, full sound from the beginning, but I think this should make you more eager to look for the video on the YouTube channel later on, because it's a very summarized of what Jose has been saying. I have to confess, like I confessed to Jose and Henry before, that when I was participating in the first meeting with ICROM on this project, it's still not so clear to me what ICROM is trying to do. I have to say that the more you go on, the clearer picture has been developing by, I would say, two of you. Because in the beginning, I didn't mention about Collegia, but thank you, Jose, for mentioning that. Collegia is an educational program to empower heritage collections professionals in Southeast Asia mostly, to develop their professional skill in conservation, in dealing with the collections. And you can see that in that project, in that program, ICROM was trying to do straightforward with the conservation methodology. And probably that's why I was confused in the beginning, what are you trying to do? But with this introduction that Jose is saying, I can see clearer now that what you're talking about, us, the collection-based organizations, and SDG. It's really, we've been saying that museum has to, or any organization concerning cultural property, they have to think of communities all the time. And many times we have problems in dealing with trying to make communities understand what we are doing. But for this step that ICROM is trying to do, like Jose is saying, is that how can work with them, the communities and all the public, to reach the goal of sustainable development by changing mindset, which will bring us to changing our culture of way of life. And that's the way that we can reach the success of sustainable development for our planet Earth. All right. So I think without further ado, since I touched upon SDG, why don't I invite Henry to talk about SDG and how it involves, how you are managing to have our collection matters to cope with SDG, and probably explain about SDG in a bigger picture for all of us, our collection-based organization in Southeast Asia. Please, Henry.
Thank you, Director Somlak. I'll just start my slideshow. Okay, so thank you, and thank you to SPAFA for the invitation to speak with you today. So my name's Henry McGee. I'm a museum consultant, and I've been working with Jose Luis on this project for a bit over a year and a half now. And so what I'll talk about is to look at our collections matter and what we're doing kind of from the outside in. What are the Sustainable Development Goals? And just so people have a bit more of the context and the understanding of those. And so just to start off with, really, that sustainable development has this, the most common definition comes from something called the Brundtland Report from 1987. But sustainable development is development that meets the needs of the present without compromising the ability of future generations to meet their own needs. It has to be said, it's still quite long, and but it's worth remembering that sustainability isn't just about stopping things going wrong. Sustainable development is about helping them go right, thinking in a broad sense of considerations of society, the environment, and the economy. And so if we think of those three aspects of sustainability, the very typical, they would be called 3 pillars or 3 dimensions of sustainability. Unfortunately, what happens at the moment tends to be that we grow the economy at the expense of the environment. So we extract value from the environment to grow the economy. And that can't continue forever. And we also see that these 3 things are very closely connected: the economy, society, and the environment. And we could take the example of COVID, that what might seem initially as a health problem, you know, a social issue, very quickly becomes an economic one, and as it turns out, almost certainly has an environmental cause. It's because of an unsustainable relationship with nature, which is causing lots of problems. We need to find a better way to balance these 3 things. And so that's the principle of sustainable development, is that we try to, if you can imagine this as kind of like 3 balls or 3 balloons, we're trying to grow these, but in a way that's in balance with one another, and that isn't at the expense of the others. And so true sustainability would lie at the heart of these 3 things. If you can imagine, that's like a kind of point with these 3 things balanced on it, that we try to grow them in harmony with one another. And sustainable development is our focused action that helps us get towards that. And so we can think of this in terms of a bank account, that we're all very familiar with the idea that in a bank account, you have your capital and you have your interest that you earn on the capital. We can think about that in terms of also of social capital and environmental capital, that so long as we maintain the capital and we try to grow the interest, but we only ever spend the interest, things can always get better. And it's also to say that this approach of thinking of these as different capitals recognizes that we need all 3. There's no point in having lots of money if you have no environment. You just can't live. It's just not possible. And so this metaphor of the bank account and how we aim to grow capital and interest together, you know, for people and nature is actually a really good way to think about it, I think. And so this is where Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals comes in. And it's really important to recognize that these things don't come from, it's not just a new thing, it's the latest step in a 50-year journey, starting with the Stockholm Declaration from 1972. Between 2000 and 2015, there were the Millennium Development Goals, which were 8 goals directed at the Global South, mostly to address poverty, hunger, and serious health issues there. But as that program was coming to an end, there was a really powerful realization that this goal-based approach had a lot of benefit. But there was also the recognition that there are problems in every country of the world. And also in solving problems in one place, we have to be aware that we're not just creating them somewhere else. So we have one planet, we are, one global village, where we have to solve these things together. And I think it's important to say that Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals aren't exactly the same thing. The Sustainable Development Goals are the 17 goals and 169 targets that help achieve the vision contained in Transforming Our World, which is often thought of as the United Nations Sustainable Development Goals, is not exactly correct, because it was developed through a very large consultation from 2012 to 2015 across all sectors, agreed by all governments. And so we could say that these are society's sustainable development goals. They have a strong mandate from society. And there are 17 goals, is too many to remember. So the simple way to think about it is this thing called the 5 Ps. These are the kind of overarching aims of Agenda 2030 and the Sustainable Development Goals: to end poverty and hunger in all their forms, to ensure prosperous and fulfilling lives in harmony with nature, to protect the planet, to foster peaceful, just and inclusive societies, and to basically to work together. And the reason these are shown as a jigsaw of 5 parts that connect with one another is we need all 5 parts. In the same way as a wheel that is broken can go nowhere, sustainable development requires all of these things to be in balance. And so the principles of the agenda and the Sustainable Development Goals are that they're about protecting and enhancing human and environmental rights, about reducing inequality within and between countries. They're about sustainability, the balance of these various aspects. There's a very important consideration of leave no one behind, and that doesn't just apply to individuals, but also sectors, which would include museums and other cultural institutions. And universality, they apply everywhere and they apply to everyone. Because the Sustainable Development Goals and Agenda 2030 are rooted in human rights, these are the rights that all of us have. This is about trying to create a future that is better for everyone together. And so here is a nice passage from Transforming Our World about we pledge to foster intercultural understanding, tolerance and mutual respect, and an ethic of global citizenship and shared responsibility. We acknowledge the natural and cultural diversity of the world and recognize that all cultures and civilizations can contribute to and are crucial enablers of sustainable development. And as we work with the cultural sector, we should, I think, recognize this, that, okay, if we accept this and agree this, we have a role to play here. We can help this to happen, but we can also, if we don't do it, we can also get in the way. And so just as an example, I wrote this guide back in 2019, thinking about, well, what are the things that, this was for museums and galleries, but it can be applied more widely, I think, as well. What are the things that they do that can really connect and support the Sustainable Development Goals? And I got it to a framework of 7 activities that they all more or less do: about protecting and safeguarding cultural and natural heritage, about supporting education for sustainable development, about promoting cultural participation for everyone, supporting sustainable tourism, responsible tourism, supporting research for the SDGs, making sure the way that we run our museums and other cultural institutions supports sustainable development, and partnering with one another, with other sectors, and collaborating effectively to create additional sustainable development value. And so using the Sustainable Development Goals can actually be really helpful to collections-based institutions. And I think it can be boiled down to these 5 main ways. They can help provide people with meaningful activities. And it's not to say that you would have an activity that's all about goal this or goal 1 or goal 3 or whatever. It's about thinking about the aims of that goal in your activity. How can we support this goal? The SDGs can help museums and other cultural institutions put their unique resources to good use. And I think the next one is really important. They can help you play a role in lots of different agendas at the same time. So if we think at the moment you may have concerns about inequality or poverty or climate change or human rights or so on. Actually, these are all connected with one another. And the reason we have this agenda that includes all of these things is actually a great way to kind of do all of them at the same time. The SDGs can help us build partnerships and collaborations, and they can help us demonstrate our value to society. They help us to identify the challenges worth working on by choosing the most appropriate SDGs. They also help us identify what difference it is that we want to make, who for, using the SDG targets as a guide, which I'll talk about shortly. They help us to plan our activities by identifying indicators to achieve our targets. They help us monitor and evaluate our activity, and they help us communicate our action externally. So they have a role to play in every stage of that cycle of deciding which activities to work on, developing our program, refining it, delivering it, evaluating it, and communicating it. They can be used at all of these different stages. And these are actually very much aligned with SPAFA's vision about supporting human capital development in 21st century archaeology and the fine arts. And it's very, very impressive to see that your strategic plan is already aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. I think that's fantastic, because it shows that you're already making that connection and saying, actually, we recognize we've got to play, we've not just recognizing that you have a part to play, but wanting to do it, because it has to be the commitment that comes first. If you want to do it, it will happen. And so when many people would say, oh, but the goals are a bit abstract, they're a bit difficult to work with, because we work in the creative and cultural sector, that's also our work. How do we take that abstract nature and how do we turn that into something concrete based on our strengths, the questions that we want to answer, and the unique capacities that we have? And so just as a very short word to say about the Sustainable Development Goals is, of course, there are 17 goals, and people are often most familiar with the colourful picture with the number on it. I think it's important to realise that that is only a picture. It doesn't reflect the full contents of that goal. So if we take goal 4, which is of course completely crucial and is also very closely linked with cultural institutions, the full title is about ensuring inclusive and equitable quality education and lifelong learning experiences for all. It's much richer than may be suggested just by the short title. And to say that within that goal, that overarching goal, there are 10 sub-goals, and these are the targets. And you'll notice that some of them have a number and some of them have a letter. The ones that have a letter are called the means for implementation targets. They tend to be about policies or laws or governance that help achieve the other 7. But it's just to show this as an example that for each goal, which can seem very abstract because they are quite abstract, there are these much more specific targets. So we can always ask, well, looking at this target, what does this mean in my context? What do I do already that contributes to it? And what do I do already that gets in the way? And then how can we develop a plan of action that does more of the good and removes the negative impacts? And that shift over time, that is sustainable development. And so we aim to help you to find the tools you need, understand how they contribute to sustainable development, to be able to use them to plan and communicate your activity in sustainable development terms, to empower you and others to take part in meeting the challenges of today and of tomorrow in order to build that better tomorrow. And I think that's what we're trying to do here, is that this is a recognition that The concept of heritage and sustainable development are very closely related. They're about what we pass on to the future from the past and the present. And also they're about acknowledging that the future is not a set thing. We make it, and heritage is one of the resources we have to create that better tomorrow. So that's the end of my presentation. So thank you.
Thank you, Henry. I think you wrap up the understanding of SDG and the plan that our collections matter is aiming to do. And that's a good last slide conclusion to collaborate with what Jose has been saying from his introduction. So let me just say again, I'm not trying to summarize what both of our speakers have said, but you can say that this project is starting from collecting all the tools concerning whatever is beneficial for collection-based organization. For example, conservation, restoration method, any methodology. However, not only the tools that they are developing for collecting all of them, for you to choose whatever appropriate and according to your needs of your collections. But it also helps to relate to sustainable development goals in each topic. And both of that, with the way they arrange, you can see that in this process, the collection-based organization can really get involved with helping the world to reach the sustainable development and to have a better tomorrow for our future generation. So like both of you have been saying that you started from the tools, and all the development of the collection of those tools, each organization can look for whatever your organization wants to use those tools, and to look back to the sustainable development goal, then you can help you to relate on the unlock the potential of your collection for the better future. So I think with that process of this program, it's somehow widen your perspective of what kind of conservation or preservation way that you want your collection to be involved in the future. So I think that's somehow a new way of we can look at our collections and how can we help us. I don't want to say save the world, but in a way, we can help make the world a better place and a better condition for sustainable existence in the future. So any of you want to add anything more for your presentation? You want to add something that you leave out on your first round, Jose?
Thank you, Director Somlak. Not to add, but maybe something that occurred to me as you were speaking, in terms of transforming the world. But when thinking about Collegia and other initiatives by ICRO, let's say a decade ago, 10 years ago, the end goal, no, the objective was to have the collections or the heritage in good shape, so well conserved. So that was our final objective. But now, no, by looking through the sustainable development lens and thinking about the future, so it's not only to conserve our heritage, but to conserve our heritage so that Henry was saying, so that it can be used as a powerful resource to make the world a better place. So it's a little bit of a change in our own mindset in terms of not the programs that we ran. As I said at the beginning, it was just to have the heritage preserved. But now it's like preserved for what? So because it's a very rich resource and we want to unlock its potential, so we conserve so that this can be used not to make the world a better place, as you so brilliantly said. Thank you.
Henry?
Can I add on to that as well, is that I think it's to kind of build on what Jose Luis was saying there, that it's very important to recognize that a few things, that there will be no place in a sustainable future for unsustainable institutions or practices. But in the same way, one of the greatest threats to cultural heritage is instability. So if we want to ensure that cultural heritage has a future, we also have to address these social and environmental problems outside. Otherwise, there's just no way it will work. You know, cultural heritage will just not last in the face of that. You know, in the face of climate change, instability, war, conflict, it'll just be a very low priority. We have to recognize that even for an entirely selfish reason, that cultural heritage institutions, the best way they will have a sustainable future is by securing peace in their context.
Thank you, Henry. Henry was saying that sustainable development is to make a balance between economy, society, and environment. And I think what you are trying to do with this project is how can our collection not just help these three component balance, but how can we balance within those three components? And by doing that is like you were saying from the beginning, changing the mindset of people in planet Earth. And we do that through our collections, I think. If you don't have any more to add, there are some questions waiting for you. So let me select some of the questions. The first one is from Felicitas Sadia, who asks, what do you think about conservation or salvage activities, which still using a lot of stuff like plastic, bubble wrap, plastic box container, etc., which less of environmental friendly and not biodegradable in context with SDGs point and waste management and reduction? How we as galleries, libraries, archives, and museums or GLAM people coping with it? Anyone would like to answer that?
Jose, do you want to, or?
Go ahead, I'll go after you.
So I think the thinking about it in terms of how we use the sustainable development goals, I think this is a really good example, because what we do is we identify what the challenge is, we identify the most relevant goals and targets, we find the most appropriate tools, and we make our plans. So what you're talking about there is around goal 12, which is sustainable, responsible consumption and production, which has a number of targets in it. For instance, goal 12.6 is adopting sustainable practices. Goal 12.7 is about sustainable procurement. And I think maybe what I would do is I would focus in on those particular targets. And I think sustainable procurement would be a good one. And it's not saying that will we do this or should, you know, it's not like a yes or a no, a black and a white. We look at the options that are available to us and we choose the most responsible, sustainable option. So I think that's the best way I would think about it. But certainly to look for looking at the principle of partnership, who else is interested in this challenge? But lots of people are interested in this challenge. How do we reduce the waste that is associated with conservation? I think that's the way that I would think about it. But certainly there are lots of tools in the toolkit that are around responsible consumption and production.
Jose?
Okay, thank you, Faizatos, for the question. I would like to add, when you select these materials, for rescue under disaster or other types of crisis situations, try to look for materials that are more durable. They can be used multiple times, for instance, instead of single-use materials, or those that are biodegradable. So I think if you look at your chain of suppliers, so I'm sure there are choices to be made there in terms of selecting materials that are more durable, that can be reused, and or that are biodegradable. Also, in terms of local materials, instead of importing. So all of that has impact in terms of environment. Like if you have to import something compared to supporting a local producer, you don't pay for travel, you're supporting the local economy. I think, as Henry was saying, there are many aspects that connect not only the waste, but also supporting the local producers and looking at the bigger picture of environmental impact. So maybe there is not a perfect solution, but for sure there are many things that can be improved. And this is what we are trying to do. Not necessarily to eliminate all of our waste, maybe that's impossible, but to reduce it as much as we can, and to be aware of that, and to communicate that, and to inspire other organizations to do the same. So that slowly we can start to transform the world. Thank you.
Thank you, both of you. I'm thinking that through the collections of toolkits that OCM has been collecting, through that, you said that through the toolkits, there might be some further discussion from questions, problems occur, and that can lead to another question, and that can be involved with new tools that we can come up with. So this is another thing that I think, aside from what our speakers have answered, you can go through those toolkits and see, are there anything that mentioned about this that can lead to some further discussion or think about, because sometimes in every condition of our countries, sometimes you find some traditional way of thinking or tools that already there, and it can answer to some of the question about this waste management that everyone is looking as a general problem, but there might be some way that is, this one is good for this condition, this one is good for another society. So next question is
Sorry, Director. if I may just add
Yes,
quickly
please.
to what you said, I totally agree. I think that's excellent. No, we're also looking at traditional knowledge. And I wanted to say the idea with the toolkit is that it's in all languages. So there's no restriction. So we want contribute, and we want everybody to who is working with some methodology or is aware of a tool that's useful in their own context to please get in touch and share the tool, the methodology with us, because we want to, as I said, we want the toolkit to be comprehensive across languages, no, across approaches. So we really want everyone on board and working together and sharing all the tools so that we can make it useful for as many people and organizations as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question is from Kartika Tika. Uh, the question is how to manage museum collections with limited space and funds so that they are safe from the risk factor prone to earthquakes. Who? Probably you, Jose?
Yes, I mean that's a tricky question. I think many organizations, collections-based organizations around the world, they face a similar reality with limited funds. We know the sector is always working with limited funds, and at the same time with exposure to several hazards, not only earthquakes. I think there was a question about floods. There's conflict, so there are fire. I mean, there are many hazards that impact on our heritage, and we don't have all the resources to treat all of them. That's a challenge for the sector. So I think, I mean, we have been also working with the risk management approach. It's also a tool that's in the toolkit whereby we can anticipate the impact of the different hazards in our heritage in the specific context where it exists. So it could be on a seismic area or close to a lake or close to wildfires or under conditions of social unrest. So we can identify these dangers, anticipate what will be the impact, and then think about many options in a systematic way that could be applicable. And from that list of options, once we understand the risk well and have developed these options systematically in terms of prevention, but also in terms of response and recovery, and at different levels of enclosure around the collection. So once we have that, we can start to see in terms of costs, what is feasible. And for sure, as everybody knows, several options will not be feasible because they're too expensive. Our budget is not enough, but there will be other options. And again, so once we do it systematically, there will be for sure options that we can use to reduce the risk. So again, oftentimes, most times, it's not possible to eliminate the risk, but if we work systematically, I'm sure there will be options which are affordable that can be used to reduce the risk in your particular context, in terms of earthquake and small. Can you reduce the exposure of the collection in terms of securing them where they are mounted or stored, or providing some cushioning, or preparing the team to rescue, if in case there is an earthquake. So there are different types of actions that we can take in terms of avoiding exposure to the hazard, blocking the hazard from affecting the heritage, in this case in particular with cushioning materials, with ways to restrain movement, in the mounting, in the way they are stored, and then preparing the team to respond in case there's a strong earthquake that's affecting the collection. So there are steps and there's the systematic way to help us develop options. And again, some of them will not be feasible because of costs, but I'm sure there will be several options that you can apply to reduce the risk. keeping in mind that in case of earthquakes, for instance, it's never possible to eliminate the risk totally, but we always work towards reduction. I hope that helps answer your question. Thank you.
I can add on to that that on the front page of the toolkit, in the list of activities, one of them is around managing disaster risk. So there are already a number of tools that are in the toolkit that might be some kind of either case studies or something that you can draw on and apply it to your own local circumstance.
Thank you, Henry. Next question, because I try to think what can I add on, but I think like both of you are saying that it's sometimes if you do not have a concrete solution for the problem, but how can you prepare for the eliminate, lessen the problems. So next question for you, for Sir Henry. That's what it said. Uh, as we belong to the third world country, how can we achieve free education even in primary? How can we start achieving SDGs?
Yeah, so I think what I would say to that is that because the SDGs apply everywhere, but the situation will be different in different places. We could take that as an example that even in the it's not so for primary or secondary education, but in the UK where I am, university education is certainly not free. But perhaps what you could think about is, again, looking in the toolkit for the relevant tools, what is the situation there, and what could cultural institutions do to help support some kind of education? But as I say, the situation is different in different countries. And if you were looking at that in terms of like schools education, to me, the obvious thing would be to look at how do you partner with schools? How can you support what they do? And certainly for those of us in the global north countries, is about raising awareness of the importance of education everywhere and for everyone. So I'm not sure if that's answered your question, but I hope so. Yeah.
Would you like to add something, Henry? I mean, Jose?
No, nothing to add. Thank you.
Well, I'm thinking that we're talking about lifelong center as museum and also community. When you're talking about education in the today's world, it's not really necessary that it has to be in schools or universities. Everywhere is where you learn something. So through the knowledge gained in your society for nowadays, we talk about the non-formal education a lot more. So just in living your life, you can achieve sustainable development goal, and you can plant your own cultural way of doing. Like Jose was saying about changing mindset. And so, I don't know, probably without knowledge in the formal education, it probably is good for today that you already preserve the sustainable development in your way. I don't know. I'm not helping you to answer the question, but I just want to put in my opinion, okay? Next one is this is from Tri Rajani. How to preserve the landscape sunken site under the water in lake so it could be sustained. Who?
I mean, I can jump in, and I would give basically the similar answer to the earthquake one.
Mm,
So again, it's some kind of hazard, no, that's affecting already the heritage. I don't know if the site is underwater because of a dam was built. So no, it has been flooded, the area there for the construction of a dam, or because of some kind of a natural phenomenon. In any case, again, no, if we are able to be aware of the hazards and anticipate the impact, there will be options to reduce the risk. Sometimes it's difficult. I don't know what exactly is the situation there, which led to the site being underwater,
mm,
if it has been connected to development, etc. So if it's already underwater, I think the way forward, no, if it will remain underwater, is to make sure there is, for instance, no looting, and no serious displacement, and to study that, document, and then make sure, if it's the case, that that will be ways to access it. But again, no, I mean, that will require, I think, more better understanding of the context. But coming back to the principle, no, I think it's in terms of conceptually, in terms of principle, it would be the same for all types of heritage, and which are exposed to the different types of hazards. No, is within the risk management strategy or way of working. So we should be able to identify the hazards and anticipate how the hazard would affect our heritage, and then look systematically at all the options that can be adopted to avoid loss of value to that heritage. And as I said, several of these options will not be feasible for cost reasons, for political reasons, etc. But then, no, we do what we can to implement the feasible option, to communicate that to the authorities, to the public, so that we also raise awareness. I think that's also an important aspect, to communicate about risks and their impact on heritage to decision makers, and also within the sector and beyond. So we do the best that we can do, and there's a methodology to that. But we know the resources are limited, so we have to navigate and be able to work within those limits. Thank you.
Henry, would you like to add anything?
No, I don't have anything to add to Jose's very full answer.
All right. Okay. Thank you, Jose. I should say Jose Luis because Henry keep calling you Jose Luis. I should change the way I call you.
Each way is fine, Director Somlak. Jose is fine too.
All right. Next question is from Shua I King. I'm sorry, I don't have the country of each people who ask question. Probably Lynn, you can help later on. Well, the person has asked, we have many private heritage collection in our place. The collections are not at museum or archive, but at people's house. What is your advice on how to connect these private collections with SDGs? Thank you. From Malaysia, Penang. Jose?
Yes, thank you. I think it's a very good question, and I think it's even a bigger opportunity, because in this case the collections are even closer to home, to the communities. So they're not in a showcase in no, in another place, but they are close to home, and I wonder if they are used, no, by the owners and by the local communities. which would be already beneficial. So again, I think as we were saying, the approach would be the same. No, I think to first and foremost to raise awareness in the people who take care of these collections about their value, no, and about their potential to help influence the communities in a positive way. So that's the one aspect. So that people are aware of their importance, their value, will take good care of them. I'm sure it's already happening in most of the case. And then look for all the opportunities, the possible ways through which these objects can be used, no, for instance, to enhance the cohesion of the community through events, through I don't know, celebrations, or so, it depends on the nature of the materials. Can they be used to raise awareness about the way we produce waste, or the ways we use energy? So be very open-minded and go through the SDGs and say, how can these objects be used to influence the communities in a positive way in terms of being better for the environment, or being better for each other, or even to increase income in terms of livelihoods. No, again, as I said, we believe there's big potential in these heritage collections to make improvements. And our job now with OCM is to really to be creative, be open-minded, and identify all possible ways through which these collections can be used in terms of the environment, in social terms, even in economic terms, not to transform the communities where they are at. So I think it's the same approach. I think it's a great opportunity that they are already close to home, I mean, within communities. And I would say, no, our job now is again to make sure they are well kept through working together with the caretakers, and then to bring this idea of what potential do we have here. So to look across the different SDGs, the different areas of sustainability, and identify opportunities that we can work with these collections to make progress towards these specific goals. I think that will be it from me as a first reaction. Thank you.
Thank you, Jose. Henry?
Yeah, I very much agree that when we're talking about cultural heritage, we're not only talking about things which are economically valuable or kind of what we would call high culture. That of course we all have our own heritage in different forms in our communities, and the most important thing is how it is used. How it is accessed, how it is shared, and how it's used as a kind of collective resource for the community's development.
Thank you. Those are the questions from our website, but these questions following are from our Facebook. And the first question is from India, from T.R. Warsi. He asked, I would like to know, out of the 17 SDGs, which one is the most important, Henry?
I would say number 17, partnership, because partnership is the way that we connect with people unlike ourselves. Museums can partner with museums, that's fantastic, but it can only go so far. We need to partner with other kinds of organizations, and also partner with communities and even with individuals in society. It's how we come together in the shared endeavor is crucial.
Jose, would you like to add anything in your mind?
I agree with Henry. So I think the way forward is working together. And again, not only with the next museum, no, of course, the network is important, but think beyond. I think we have to go beyond the heritage sector and partner with different types of organizations in different sectors, and be able to show the power of heritage not in this transformation. I think we are being a little bit shy. Maybe it's because we are not so conversant or not fully aware of what the SDGs and the targets are about. And with OCM, no, with our collection method, that's what we want to achieve, so that we as a sector, we become more literate, more conversant, more comfortable in talking the SDG language, and we go out there beyond the heritage sector and talk to all these other actors, and we engage with them through partnerships to address the different goals, and to really use or maximize the power of heritage, in this process. Thank you.
I must say, I thank you, Henry, because I was thinking when I read that question, I would say, oh, every goal is equally important. But it's good that you point that out and Jose added in, because then we can see that sometimes it's up to the people who look at it. How can we make it prioritized among the 17 goals? So thank you. My personal thanks. The last questions is from DC, Washington, DC. I'm not sure, from DC, from Valeria Orlandini. Greetings from DC. What are the options and actions that are affordable and feasible? Jose Luis, how do you prepare a salvage team with no resources?
Thank you for the question. I think the main resource is the people. So if you have your team, I think that's the main resource you could have. Of course, you can think of not the state of the art, the best materials, but I think most important is the knowledge. So if we have a committed team which is knowledgeable about the possible impacts of a hazard on heritage, and the ways forward to in case it's a rescue operation, to do that, because oftentimes when we have seen that when people approach a disaster situation, try to salvage heritage or other things, it can cause more damage if you're not aware about how to approach that. But again, if you have a committed team that is being capacitated, that's been trained, and colleagues in DC, I mean, the expertise is there. Even if there is no money, I think there are solutions in terms of support materials. If you have a minimum space for rescuing, so you can create a successful operation without a large amount of resource. Also in terms of partnership. So if you are engaging with the civil defense or the fire brigade, or whoever is controlling the disasters scenario, the situation. So if you engage with these actors and partner with them, you'll probably get support from them. They'll authorize you to go in. They will support you, they will instruct you, and with a committed team, even if it's small, and in case of limited resource, I think they're still feasible in terms of the basic materials and some space. I think it could maybe not the best possible, but a successful rescue operation can be arranged. Thank you.
So, oops. Thank you, Jose. Well, there are more questions. One more question on our website from Marie de Andre Callen of the Philippines. Can you suggest ways of conserving intangible heritage as part to achieve SDGs?
Yeah, if I can answer that, I think I would turn the question around the other way and look at how can intangible cultural heritage help achieve the SDGs, because it really, really can. And there are certainly some tools in the toolkit around intangible cultural heritage. as a lived heritage, and how can other cultures and so on even learn from intangible cultural heritage and apply some of those lessons in their own circumstance. So I think that's the way I would think about that.
Yes, if I may add, I just put on the chat a link to the toolkit, and if you see on the top right hand side, there's a filter. So if you go there and you type intangible, you will find all the tools that relate to intangible heritage and the sustainable development goals, so you can explore the tools that we have there so far. Thank you.
Well, I guess that's all our questions, which are quite a lot, uh, considering our session uh, before. So I like to say that it's good that both of you had agreed to come on our Spaffer Sage program, because I think it's a good opportunity for our colleagues in the region who are mostly working in the collection-based organizations, and they can learn more about the new way of ICROM approach to deal with unlock the potential of our collections to meet the challenge of how to meet with the sustainable development goal. And I just like to summarize a bit on what both of you have been saying, that first you would like us to ask ourselves how to contribute to this uh, transformation of the world concretely. Second, what is the role that we can play? And then the third one is the key word, that we should unlock our potential of our collections. And then you said collection can drive the change uh, to us, the people, and later it can help us change the world, transform to a better world. And that's the mindset. And then you talk about tools that you put in the collection that people can choose. And from there, you ask if we have any, how do you say, opinion or suggestions that can lead to the training program. And through the training program, and with the mindset that all of us have been changed through the period of this project, then we can help transformation of the world and to build the better world later on. So I thank you on behalf of Simeo Spafa and all of our audience, to Jose Luis and Henry McGee, and for a very, very fruitful and knowledgeable speech, and the introduction to the OCM, OCM collection matters that will develop, I'm sure. And we are looking forward to the college year program that you are having with Museum Siam in Thailand, and with other participants in September, right? And later next year. And I'm hoping that through our session here, people who have been acknowledged this information, the OCM will grow bigger. And so thank you so much. I would like to give the floor back to Lynn so she can conclude everything. Okay, thank you both. See you later.
Thank you.
So thank you so much, Jose Luis, Henry, and Achan Somwak for this quite dynamic session. I believe, well, I also wanted to add when we were talking about addressing that question on intangible cultural heritage, just to echo what Henry was saying on how intangible cultural heritage can actually be a resource. Simios Bava has actually recently published a publication that documents traditional knowledge in conserving textiles. So that's an example of where intangible cultural heritage can actually be used for sustainable methods in conservation. So just a little plug in here, feel free to go to our website and download that for your use in your collections if you have textiles in it. But yes, so thank you to everyone. I would like to announce the winners of the bag prize. So from amongst our Zoom attendees, the winner is Chua Ai Keng from Malaysia. And from our Facebook, the winner is Valeria Orlandini from Washington, DC. So thank you very much for participating. And please check out ICROM's website for more resources on Our Collections Matter. Please go to the Simios Bava webpage to get other resources as well, and to stay tuned for further activities in the Spafa Sesh online series. So thank you so much to our speakers and moderator for devoting their time today. And thank you especially to our audience for participating and for supporting us as always. So thank you.